It's a sure thing. Change, change. Expect a miracle change. Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 change. Do 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 do.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Spirit Cafe Show. I'm Barbara Jane.
And I'm Cheryl Rogers.
And together we host this great, courageous conversations that we love to have. So we'll begin with the land acknowledgement. We work, live, and play on the historical and traditional territory of many First Nations. And as we gather on Turtle Island, we as settlers are grateful for the opportunity to meet here. And we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, including the Métis, Inuit, and all other Indigenous people. Also acknowledging that as we continue to grow, there is unresolved and dangerous inequality and discrimination toward our BIPOC and 2S LGBTQ plus family. By making these acknowledgements, we strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation. We recognize our oneness, we realize our history, and we choose to create a new reality. We are one.
Yeah, we are. And it is my honor and my privilege to introduce our guest speaker today, Jan Phillips. And I have to tell you, there is so much I could say about Jan. She's one of the most fascinating people I've come across. She's a visionary thought leader, award-winning author, and dynamic speaker. She's worked in over 25 countries. Her quest led her into and out of a religious community across the US on a Honda motorcycle and around the world on a one-woman peace pilgrimage, blending East and West, art and activism, reflection and ritual. And her presentations are transformative, uplifting, and soul-stirring. And I invite you, I challenge you to go to her website, at janphillips.com, where you will see a TED Talk by her, and you will see so many other of her accomplishments. She's written a number of books, and still on fire is her own story, which is just fascinating. Welcome, Jan.
Welcome, Jan.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I do hope I live up to the expectations you've just created.
Oh, I'm sure you will. Today our topic is leaving religion to forge a faith. And I have some idea of what that means, having read some of your work and heard you speak. But I wonder if you could explain what that means to our followers and our viewers. What does that mean, leaving religion to forge a faith?
It's something that I learned as a postulate in the convent when we had our first theology class. And the priest walks into the room and says, "All right, let's hear it. Somebody stand up and tell me about this relationship of yours with this God you're about to marry." And he was a tall, burly Lithuanian guy with a thick accent. And he just asked us, we're all like 18 years old, fresh out of Catholic high school. And he asked us a really difficult question. But, you know, Catholics never teach you how to think. They only teach you what to think. And so we had been studying the Baltimore Catechism since we were preparing for our first Holy Communion. So we memorized all the answers. So one sister raises her hand, says, God the Father is the first person of the Holy Trinity, and blah, blah, blah. And we all go, yeah, that's true. Affirmed her, right? And he says to her, that's it? That's all you got? Yes, Father, she says. Sit down. And that happened with two other women. They said, God created us to share his everlasting life. And they had their answers were right out of the Baltimore Catechism. So I was aware that they were good, right answers. And then he says to the last one, sit down, and creates for us, for me, a moment of anxiety because I didn't know what he was up to. He said, you should all be ashamed of yourselves. You've all memorized like a bunch of monkeys. You don't know what it means. I said your personal relationship. None of you have said anything about personal anything.
Yeah.
And he said, that's your religion. He goes, you got your religion memorized. Religion is like a bunch of doctrine. It's dogma. It's things written in books that they tell you are holy. And then you read them and you memorize them and you put them up on your shelf. And that's what we're going to do this whole semester. You keep those books on religion up on your shelves, because I'm going to show you how to create a faith for yourself based on who you are and your ultimate commitments. You know, he's reading Paul Tillich at the time, and that was the phrase Paul Tillich was using, but we didn't know what the hell it meant. And he had to keep dumbing it down for us. But in a nutshell, this is how it works. You figure out what is it, how he said it's what are you living for? What's that thing you die for? What's the ultimate, most important commitment of your life? You have to know that first. And so I thought, Jesus, how do you figure that out? So I went back to my relationship with Jesus. You know, all as a kid, I raised myself on this book called My Daily Bread. It was like conversational experiences with Jesus, the man. And so I recalled, you know, if someone says, what are the 3 most important things you learned from Jesus? I'd say, be kind, fight for justice, or stand for justice, and be merciful and forgiving. Love people, right? Be a stand for justice and be merciful and forgiving. So I put that in my box called this is how Jesus spoke to me. And so forging a faith, he said, okay, religion is something you memorize. Faith is something you create that's based on your ultimate concerns. So what is the faith that you're creating? That's a living thing. That's personal and unique to you. It's not based on what anyone else says, thinks, or doesn't think. And then he gave us a chance during that whole semester to really work through it and figure it out. And the day came when he would say, okay, Jan Phillips, stand up. Let's hear what your faith is all about. And I said, my faith is this. I believe I'm a light in the world that's called to bring joy, to stand for justice, to cause peace, and to love everyone that I'm with. And I had figured it out. I didn't need him saying good work. But ultimately, the metaphor that I got out of it was like religion is the score, faith is the music. Religion is the menu, faith is the meal. Okay? So religion is that dead thing that accumulates dust.
Oh, yes.
right? But faith is a living thing that gets you out of bed in the morning, that tells me, what am I going to do today to be a cause for good, to create something that matters? That's my faith. It runs my life.
It's so beautiful. So to me, that sounds really progressive for someone who entered, the nunnery to become a nun, to hear that so many years ago and to be able to develop your faith in that way.
Well, I only entered the convent because it was a nun that saved my life. I was suicidal when I find out I'm gay. Age 12, I'm trying to figure out how to kill myself. And my 6th grade nun saw that I was deeply disturbed. And so she began this campaign, which she called positive reinforcement, which means she affirmed me and loved me intensely. Everything I did. Oh, look at class. See how great Jan Phillips writes on the board. Oh, look how artistic she is. Would you help me with the bulletin board? Oh, you're such a good athlete. I watch you playing capture the flag. Oh, you're the best speller in the spelling bee. All that affirmation. So eventually it's like she took a fan and fanned that little ember. It was about to go out. And then my fire raged. And when my fire raged, I said, I'm going to be a nun when I grow up, because if nuns save kids' lives, that's what I want to do.
That's beautiful. And I think that's basically the teaching of Jesus, to be in service to humanity, to be there for whatever's needed. I think that's sort of the message that I got. Inadvertently, but I had a direct experience at age 27 because I wasn't raised with religion. And I got invited to a church service, which I only went to because I wanted my mother-in-law to like me. So I thought, okay, I can endure an hour of church. And I went in there, and the only way I can describe it is I was in the dark. And by the time I left, it was like the blinders had been taken off and I knew God as love. And it just changed my entire life. From that moment on, I was trying to figure it all out. So it's interesting, and trying to figure out my faith from the place of religion, which wasn't working. So I only stayed in that church for about 1.5 years, and then I had to leave because they were the only ones going to heaven. Everybody else on earth would go to hell. And I couldn't believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. And I know, Jan, that from reading your book, that experience was life-changing for you, and that because it really started your journey, your quest, I think, if I can call it that, of finding out who you really are, and expanding your faith even more into what it is today.
Well, at first, after 2 years, I was kicked out because they too discovered that I was gay. So they sent me home, which was emotionally the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I couldn't get over it. I just thought I was like a country western tune. They'd done me wrong. Yeah. But a combination of electrifying emotions like outrage and shame and regret and disgust and sorrow that they had let me go, and I was such a leader, and I was a burgeoning little mystic. How wrong could they be to do
betrayal, right?
So, I still continued to be a Catholic. I moved to California and joined a parish where I was teaching guitar lessons and originating folk masses. One mass every Sunday, we do folk masses. And I had 5 kids. They all were playing the guitar now. And somehow it happened that I went to the priest and I went to confession, and I admitted that I was gay, not like I was asking forgiveness, but it came up and I said, I don't even know if gay was in the vernacular then. I probably said I was homosexual because it was 1969 or 70. And he said, I'm not giving you absolution until you stop being gay.
Oh.
And I tried it. I went home for a week and I talked to my partner. It was just the weirdest thing ever. We tried to actually be straight. And of course it doesn't work. It's like, okay, let me turn my eyes to brown.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how well that's going to work. So I go back to him and I say, it's not possible for me not to be queer, not to be homosexual. And he said, then you can no longer be part of this church. I refuse you absolution. You get no longer can you have the sacraments, and I forbid you to do your folk masses. So that was the end of that. That was like what one might think of as being excommunicated.
Yeah.
So then I really had nothing. And for years and years and years, I had nothing. I wasn't meditating. I didn't try to replace it with something else. You know, I mean, I moved up to Northern California where there's covens. I said maybe I should be a witch, right? Hung out with witches for a while. That was just nothing fit. Nothing fit. And it took me 20 years, actually, in order to have all this angst be the driving thing in my life. And finally, my partner one day said to me, Sister Marian Ripsky was the head honcho of our mother house when we were both, Annie, my partner, was also a novice. She goes, hey, Marian Ripsky's rotated out of leadership. She's now over at St. John's teaching chemistry. Why don't you go talk to her, see if you can get right with this? Because I was just agitated, and it'd been 20 years, and I had tried everything I knew, therapy, you know, just nothing was working. So I asked Sister Marian Ripsky, would she let me come and sit and tell her my story and just see if, and by some miracle happened, I could get released. I just said I have such a pain in my heart and it's not getting healed and it's taken up so much in my life, the sorrow. So I went over to the convent. She was very gracious. I said, I'll start the story when I'm 12. I'll end it where I'm right now, sitting with you. I'll cry through it. Just don't interrupt me. So we had that experience together, and I said, okay, I'm done. And it was kind of a pregnant moment there for a while. Nobody talked. And then she said to me, to call me sister. Sister, will you forgive me for the terrible injustice that was done to you on my watch? And I was surprised by that. It wasn't what I was going for. It wasn't like, yes, they understand they need it wasn't that at all. It was not the awareness I was operating on. But I said, yes, I forgive you for this terrible injustice that was done to me on your watch. And then she said, and will you forgive the entire sisters of the community of St. Joseph of Carondelet for the injustice we did to you when you were with us? And I said, yes, I forgive the entire community for the injustice that you did to me when I was with you. And then the miraculous moment occurred when the miraculous moment, it's like in The Sound of Music when the sun comes through the window. And I had a moment of enlightenment. And it was like, oh my God, there's nothing to forgive. I want to thank you for the privilege that you gave me 2 years of a monastic life and then let me go because you understood it wasn't the right thing. And that's when I learned there's nothing to forgive. And when I was driving home from that meeting, the second part happened where across my mindscape, like a movie, were all the scenes that I had created in order to get myself dismissed. Smoking in the woods, stealing the wine, kissing the novices, lying in chapel, talking in chapel, talking during grand silence, all those things.
Yeah.
So I could see nothing to forgive because the whole thing happened to me, but for me and through me. And those are the two biggest things I know in my life.
Love that. Yeah. For me, not to me.
Yeah.
Well,
wow.
To me and for me.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That is
And
so
through me.
powerful.
Yeah.
Such a powerful moment. Wow. Yeah.
And so important for people to hear, because I think we get confused around the idea of religion and what it's supposed to be. And I think the idea of having sort of that epiphany moment where you have an experience of your relationship with the divine, I think that just changes everything. We're now looking at sort of all the rules and regulations and the discriminations. None of it makes sense. But all of it is taking all of us to wherever it is we need to go. Like we're all kind of waking up and we're at different levels, and wherever we are is right for us at the time. So the wake up happens, and there's nothing to forgive. Everything is just a dance of this life experience, which is, I think, why we're here, is to experience this, whatever it looks like.
Yeah. And though I will say, as a spiritual being having a human experience, when we go through those emotions of feeling excommunicated, not accepted, betrayed, thrown out, all those kinds of things, they are very legitimate at the time. And I think that I believe that it's really hard to let go of all that unless the work is done. And in this case, the work was going back to the nun, to the mother superior. I'm not sure what names they use.
That's good.
But to going back and to facing your feelings and to hearing from her the question of asking you to forgive. Because I think just having been involved in restorative justice and having seen a number of situations where harm has been caused and how victimized people feel until they actually hear from the person that has caused that harm, and that person has taken accountability for that harm, it's very hard to move on. But once we get that acknowledgement, I think that is huge and makes it so much easier then to understand what it was all about.
I think it makes it easier, but it doesn't always happen.
No, it
Oftentimes,
doesn't.
justice
No.
is done by somebody who's passed on, or somebody who, just isn't at that place. And I think we have to sometimes take it on ourselves to really look at what it is we believe to be true. And are we ready to stand in the light that we were created in, the way that we are? And I think the challenge is just to, forgiving people can be a real tough one.
Well, and that's one way, right? I say it takes work. That's one way. There's another book that I just love by Desmond Tutu and his Bishop Desmond Tutu and his daughter, called The Book of Forgiveness. And it is incredible. I mean, for me, even reading that book helps anybody understand what forgiveness means and how forgiveness is for ourselves and not for anyone else. Right. And until we get that, and not allow any other external power to have bondage over us. So there's different ways, but I think it's huge. I mean, forgiveness is just very powerful. Very powerful.
Freedom.
Yeah.
We're going to take a commercial break. Believe it or not, we're just about at the halfway point here already. I'm in awe of that. So we're going to take a short little break. You're watching Spirit Cafe Show. We have the remarkable guest, Jan Phillips, and of course, my beloved co-host, Cheryl Rogers. And we're going to be back in just a minute, so don't go away.
I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. Here and now, I can see I was made beautifully. I was made in the image. I was made in the image of love. Wish we'd all stop acting like we're strangers if we could see underneath. We are one family, and it don't matter where you come from. Every heart beats to the rhythm of one love, one love, one love. Every heart beats to the rhythm of one love.
Welcome back to Spirit Cafe. And we're talking to Jan Phillips today about leaving religion to forge a faith.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what I want to know, I mean, I think I know how I feel about it is, can we have faith without religion?
Oh, yeah, totally. That's all I have is faith. I don't have any religion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
consider myself a post-theist. I don't even have a visible God out there.
Mm-hmm.
I interact. I say my prayers daily. I interact with divine mystery. But more as the air, the sea that I'm swimming in, the air that I'm breathing, the air that's in my lungs, in and out, all the same, the great deep mystery. That's faith. That's not any kind of religion. Yes. Can you be faithful if you're religious is the question.
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. Because I agree with you, Jen. I agree with you 100%. And I believe that my sister over here, my soul sister from another mother and father, believes the same thing, you know, and that we are all one and we are part of it, part of the oneness, right? The whatever you want to call it, source, energy, universe, whatever we want to call it. I think the analogy that I've really liked over the last couple of years was the wave in the ocean. So we are unique expressions of the oneness, but we are still part of it, and living in it, as it, experiencing itself. So I love that answer. And the question that you said, what was that question again? Can you be faithful in religion?
Right. Like you're a good I have plenty of uncles who are good Catholics, but their official stance is they have to say, no, women shouldn't have any rights over their body. No, LGBTQ people shouldn't marry. Right? So they have to officially maintain stances that are not what Jesus would have been standing for.
Exactly.
Right?
I love what you said, Jan, living in the divine mystery. I love that because, of course, we can't know this, whatever this is that we live, move, and have our being in. And so that phrase, divine mystery, that really resonates with me. And I think as we explore, I know in my center years ago, I had a couple of people who considered themselves atheist because they didn't believe in the God in the sky, the guy in the sky. And it's interesting that they found faith as atheists. I'm going, well, I don't think you're atheist anymore, or maybe ever were.
Like Greta Vosper, who's up there in Canada, she's a pastor of a church and she's an atheist minister.
Yeah.
Right? And the whole community understands the complexities of what that means. For some reason, I won't call myself an atheist. I will only call myself a post-theist, which means I have really thought about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have given it a great deal of thought, and I have advanced beyond theism.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that because as much as I don't believe in a God that has been created by us, by man, because I really do believe that the saying that we are made in the image and likeness of God is really has been turned around, and we have made God in our image and likeness.
Yeah.
And so I won't say I'm an atheist because I definitely believe in something, but certainly not religion as religion is taught and packaged. You know, it's very hard for me to understand how religions can say those things and still talk about Jesus as their way shower.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it seems contradictory to me, and I'm not sitting here in judgment because I'm not perfect either. But what I do believe is that Jesus came here to show us who we are, and the things that we can do and how to live, and that if we lived by his teachings. I mean, he even said that we could. I don't know the Bible and I don't know the words, but something about us doing
anything you've seen me do, you can do, and even more.
Thank you. That's exactly it. Thank you, Jan. Yes, I knew what I wanted to say because I'd heard that, and I really do believe that because he's saying that I am you and you are me, and this is who we are, and how we can be and how to live. So I do find it hard to relate to religion. I find it hard even to relate to, and I know that people from my family, if they were ever listening to this, would be horrified because I grew up Jewish and my grandparents were Orthodox. And for the longest time, it's interesting. We have these things that we have to heal from in Christianity. And for me, there's a healing that I think that we as Jewish people need to go through as well, and that is that we are the chosen people. I mean, for me, it's like we are all the chosen people. There's no difference between you, me, the person down the street, but that's another way that religion, I think, has segregated us. Created division. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but I know that if I was living, I don't know, 100 or 200 years ago, I probably would have been burnt at the stake.
Yes.
I'd be right there with you.
I would be too. I'd be burnt before you.
You get
I
yourself
say what
to-
you're thinking out loud.
Right, and-
I have to boycott the song. He's got the whole world in his hands.
oh my
Because
God.
I think that song, although I sang it every campfire all summer, all my life, it's caused us to have a planet that's imperiled right now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We think God's going to take care of it. He's got the whole world in his hands. And that is, I think, it's not just ridiculous, but it's beyond us right now. It's damaging us.
Absolutely.
To hold that belief that someone's going to take care of. Someone gave us this. I'm not going to say someone. We have inherited a nest, a planet.
Yeah.
That planet's in our hands.
Mhm.
It's not in anyone else's hands,
Mhm.
right? And we learn from nature. Nature's the sacred text. You can watch an albatross mama teaching her little babies how to walk in a circle around the nest and do their pooping way outside,
Yeah.
right? You can watch nature, and every mother teaches. The birds teach their children how to know the stars so they can travel at night. I mean, elephants teach. Nature is the only book we need to be
I
reading.
agree. Yeah.
Exactly. And look at what we've done to our indigenous people who were living from, following the energy of the sun and the moon and the seasons and, living off the earth and taking what they needed and not anymore. Like we've destroyed so much, us brilliant first world people. Like we have decimated nature, and I sit back some days and it's like trying to reconcile now what? It's like, and each one of us has to do our little bit, because if everyone did a little bit, it would begin to make a difference. And I think sometimes we get a little bit like, well, I'm just one person, so what can I do?
I'll tell you my formula for
Mhm,
this. Here's the answer that I've derived at.
mhm.
You take, how you fuse two polar opposites and then a new life comes. Use the
Yep.
egg and the sperm, the new life.
Yeah.
With your battery, you have to have the positive and the negative to get it
Yep.
charged. Okay, so you take the two polarities. One is your heart's desire. The other is your heart's break. Of
Mhm.
all the social things that are going on, what is breaking my heart the most?
Yeah.
And if you polled 5 people in the grocery store, it'd go like this: rainforest, plastic in the ocean, polluted rivers and lakes, puppy mills, homeless people, right? Every one of us is moved by a certain social issue. That's our clue.
It is.
Now, how do I know what to do? And this is where your heart's desire comes in. What would you do if you won the lottery? What do you really, really love to do besides pickleball? Watching CSI reruns, right? And if pickleball is it for you, and if the rainforests are it for you, then organize a pickleball event where you raise money and send that money to Rainforest Alliance.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
So that the response is what most breaks my heart. And then you say what I most love to do.
Mhm.
Right? I love teaching kids writing. What breaks my heart is there's a lot of homeless kids down here.
Mhm.
So it would work that I would go to where the homeless kids gather, and we would figure out a way to write together, to tell our stories, to harvest the events of our lives and get it down in some way. So nobody should be saying, I just don't know what to do. I know there's so much wrong, but I don't have time. That's the activity in our life
Exactly.
that provides us with a sense of purpose and meaning. It gives us something to talk about that's worthwhile besides the best baked beans recipe.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Exactly.
And everyone's looking for, how can my life be more passionate? And that's the answer. Find something that is important, that needs you, and figure out how to be part of that thing and contribute to it in a joyful way. And sometimes it's going to go wrong, because I'm in a border town, right? I'm in San Diego. So migration, immigration's a big deal. So I go to Jewish Family Center and I said, what can I do? Well, we've got 400 migrants in this building downtown. You could go feed them, we feed them 3 meals a day. So I said, all right. I go down to the dining room. Okay, first Clorox and water, clean all the tables, put on a hairnet, make these ridiculous white bread ham sandwiches that have one slice of ham on it, and then serve the people. And then they eat fast, and then they go away, and Clorox again, the hairnet, everything again. And that happens 3 times a day. And I said, this isn't joyful enough for me. It wasn't the right work.
Yeah.
And so, if you're not doing the right work. So then I traded out. I said, I want to be a driver that drives families to the airport and ushers them through TSA, takes them all the way to the gate, buys them bananas and water on the way, speaks Spanish through Google Translate. I want to be that person.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel bigger and better. And I don't need a hairnet.
Not at all. And no Clorox is involved.
No Clorox and floor wiping. Oh, Lord. And so, it's sometimes we have to experiment with best ways to be of service.
Yeah. I think the key is to realize that all of us need to be in service. We're here, we're drawing breath. So we are either part of the problem or part of the solution. And in Toronto here, we have a lot of tent communities and a lot of homeless people and a lot of refugees that have come in that have no place. And I serve on a board called Toronto People with AIDS Foundation. And we are doing
Toronto People what?
Toronto People with AIDS Foundation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we provide whatever people need. We have a food bank, we have a boutique where they can get clothing and books and anything they need, furniture, whatever. And so I talk to everybody I know about donating. Whatever you've got, I'll even come and pick it up and take it to PWA, so that, because there's people here who are, they don't have beds, they don't have blankets. We were at the World AIDS Day last year, and it was cold here. I was wearing a heavy parka and 2 pair of pants and freezing. And there's a guy standing there with bare feet in sandals. And I had an extra pair of socks in my purse. So I grabbed them out and gave them to him. It wouldn't help a lot, but it would help a bit. But it reminded me that, I've got a closet full of stuff. I have friends who have closets full of stuff. Let's start handing that stuff where it's needed.
And everyone always has extra socks in their purse.
Always. It was so funny because it was so cold that day. I thought, I'm going to throw in an extra pair of socks in case my feet get cold.
That's hysterical.
That's lovely. Yeah. But I really do love what you've said, Jen. It's the first time I've really heard it said that way, bringing the polarities together. What you love and what breaks your heart, and doing something good out of that, right? Because it makes me think of that spark, right? That when you talk about joy,
that's it, the spark.
It's that spark,
if
right?
you watch the news, within 10 minminutes, you got 5 things that are wrong.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think for me, I really struggle, and I'm going to go back to it because I struggle with the war and the killing and everything that is done in the name of God, in the name of religion. And I don't know, that for me is like, I don't know what to do with that, quite honestly.
Why don't you write an essay or write 3 poems about it?
Yeah.
Need something kind of privately at first.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's a lot of people speaking to it, preaching to it publicly, like Atlantic Magazine, Harper's Magazine, that's a common topic right now. I call it the crock of ages. And right, so I dissuade people from using the word God, and I'm now contemplating how am I going to pitch an article on why we should stop using the word God.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. Oh, please. I would love to read that, Jen. Please let us know when that's written. We'll publish it in Unity something or other and CSL.
Yeah. Well, I told Cheryl last week, I said, we need to do a show that is WTF God.
Yeah. Absolutely.
People
GWTF.
What's that?
GWTF.
GWTF.
Yeah.
Well, and so what I will say though, what I really truly believe is that this is a time of change.
Yeah.
And this is a time of transformation. And I recognize that things have to be brought to the surface to be acknowledged in order to create change, in order for change to happen, to take place. Because if it doesn't, if they aren't, then we are complacent as a people. We become very complacent, and nothing happens. So it's like we need that cracker behind us, right, to really get our attention, to make something happen and to create a change and make a difference.
Religion has taught us to wait for the Savior.
Yeah, for me, it's waiting for all this muck to come out, because I think it's coming, and I really think that it's going to spur something that we aren't even aware of yet. I think
it's already started.
It has started, absolutely, and it started a number of years ago. I think, this has been it's been probably eons, right, to where we are, because this moment in time is a speck in whatever.
I worked with Michael Morwood up in Nova Scotia. There's a group of like theologian type people from a few provinces up there, mostly maritime, but every year they came together and they had a seminar for 5 days where they explore ideas about theology and spirituality. And one year they asked both me and Michael Morwood, who's a silenced priest from Australia, silenced by Cardinal Pell. Wow. Anyway, he's written quite a few books and they're very astute, but he's further ahead on the evolutionary spiral than anybody dares be in the Catholic Church. So he has been silenced and basically excommunicated. So he married a woman and now he travels as a prophetic being. Mm-hmm. And so the two of us we're at a B&B, and it was the day of our seminar going to start. And I said, it's kind of interesting. They've asked two excommunicated Catholics, right?
I like it.
A lesbian ex-nun and a married ex-priest to be their guides for this journey to advance themselves evolutionarily. I said, I hope it's okay with you, because I talk in the morning, he talk in the afternoon, back and forth. I said, I hope it's okay with you that I don't let the people say G-O-D. And he takes a sip of his tea and eats his little crumpet and says, well, I hope it's okay with you, but I don't let the people say Christ. And we just laughed hysterically because he's all mad at Paul for turning Jesus the man into Christ the anointed one.
Yes. Yes.
The Greek, who was never even there for it, or Paul, the Greek, never ever there for anything.
Uh-huh.
He turns Jesus into the Christ, in which people think it's his last name,
I know, that's
and
hilarious.
stopped relating. Now think Jesus wasn't the great example. He was the great exception.
Yes.
And
That's
that is not the case. He was
not
the
at all.
great example.
Yes.
Right. And we get
Showed
to
us how to do
explore
it.
and discern for ourselves about the resurrection, about the miracles. I mean, if anybody reads Spong at all,
Yeah.
you know how tainted those books of the Bible are.
Well, you know,
And people are afraid to let it go. Right.
yeah.
I say that people believed the earth was flat back then.
Yeah.
Right.
Some still do.
Like science. They believed in a science that you'd never believe in now.
Exactly.
And yet you say the literal text is true forever and ever. When I just watched this morning, I sent out in my newsletter a while back, 2 weeks ago, a letter from Dr. Laura, who was a Christian psychiatrist, therapist, whatever.
Yeah.
And some man wrote her a letter and said, using all the book of Leviticus primarily, dear Dr. Laura, I know you're such a good biblical help for people. Could you help me understand these things? I know I'm supposed to smite my neighbor because he's eating shrimp and lobster, and we're not supposed to do that according to Leviticus 12. And my own wife is wearing clothing of 2 different threads. So I don't know if I have to like kill her alone, or should I have the police come and do it? There's like 20 questions that are equally ridiculous.
Mhm.
And just this morning, I came across, it was like Instagram reels. I
Mhm.
came across a West Wing episode where some guy had brought into the office of the president, Martin Sheen, a question based on the biblical reference. We have to do this about the LGBT people because it says right here homosexuality is an abomination. And the president says to him, oh, good, I hope you can help me with this one about what's the best way to smite my neighbor, and all about, my wife and my girls are wearing materials with 2 different cloths and eating shrimp. And, the whole thing was condensed into a West Wing episode.
That's cool.
Which goes so fast, it's hard for those slow thinking right wing people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's hard for them to think about something independently.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing that we need most. And that's where your work is so important, because when we start to think for ourselves what makes actual sense, we start to create from a platform of possibility for actual positive change that could help all of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting out of our way of what's going to inconvenience me to
Mhm.
more of a place of, if I don't do what I'm called to do, the inconvenience is going to be massive. Our world is falling apart. So what do I do to support humanity, nature, everything? Like all of it is just part of one thing. So I've got to be really conscious about my place in it. What am I doing? I like my air conditioning, but I think, I don't know. But I find other ways. I'm a vegan, so that helps a little bit. And just looking at how do we make a difference. But my passion is people, people who are homeless and who, refugees who come into the country who can't bring their children in, people of color who get abused just because of the color of their skin. I'm appalled by all of that. So I have to forgive anyone that doesn't know or whatever, but come to a place of what can I do to bring love into all of these cracks in the concrete? How do I find a way to do that? And that's been my sort of calling for quite a while now. And
I
helping.
just found this.
else.
I just found this online and I ordered it. It's a deck of cards that'll help me have conversations of consequence with people about racism, because it's very hard for us. You can't bring in people of color and say, help us figure this out.
No,
No.
you can't.
We have to figure it out. So
Yeah.
because I love to call circles together and have conversations that matter.
Yeah, me
So
too.
this anti-racist deck is like giving me an opportunity.
Oh, I'm going to get that. I
Yeah,
love
thank you. Thank you for
Oh, good.
sharing that. Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
things we're doing at PWA is very consciously, the board of directors are doing deep personal work to eliminate anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism, misogyny, and also beginning the dismantling of colonialism. So we're, it's just a little job. So we're striving to do that at that level, and then we will take it deeper as we go along. But I think that's the work that needs to be done, is for us to remember we're all part of one thing. We have to come together.
Yeah.
Boy, we could talk to you for days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
We're down to 4 minutes here.
your behind the scenes woman is doing such a fabulous job. She should
They
show
will.
her face so we could applaud her.
Absolutely.
These things don't happen by mistake. She's a curator of brilliance, and she's
Absolutely.
so busy managing all the parts here.
Come on, Deja, put your camera on. Come on the
She's a
screen.
star. Deja is our star. And she supports both Unity of Kitchener and Center for Spiritual Living on the lake. And so we are so blessed to have her as part of our family.
Yes.
And let me know, Dea, if you make yourself available to help other people who are ready to do a podcast, I will spread that word, because a lot of people feel like I want to do it, but I don't know how to make it happen. So if that's true, email Jan at janphillips.com and let me know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
You're
so
a
much.
star. You're a supernova.
She is. She is.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's our administrative assistant for both of our centers. And she works tirelessly, and she's got a lot on her plate.
Yeah.
So, and when she first immigrated from Mexico with refugee status, she found my church, and we've been together ever since.
Well,
And-
let's give praise and thanks to Unity and CSL.
Yeah.
And let the people know, if you move, only thing you have to do to find community is find a center for, it used to be Christians, I don't know what it's called, Center for Spiritual Renewal,
Spiritual Living.
CSL, Center for Spiritual Living, or a Unity Church, and there will be your community, and you go from there. That's called the New Thought Movement. We're a part of it, and this is what we think about, live about, care about, and give our time and energy to. That's why we're full of purpose, full of joy, and full of like rapture.
Yeah.
Because not only do we get to be carriers of divine light and wisdom, we get to celebrate it in circles like this. So you have no longer an excuse. You're not alone.
No one's alone. Jan, thank you. This has been very, very fantastic. Exactly what Cheryl and I talk about often. One quick final thought.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
every day, find a place that you could sit in silence for 10 minutes and consider that your date with your new beloved, your love affair, the time that you're devoting to the one you're madly, wildly in love with. Don't miss that date. Every day, do it. And you will find, when you do it for 21 days in a row, even 10 minutes, don't miss a day, something extraordinary will happen to you to
Yes.
cause a transformation in your consciousness, and you will be that person you're striving to be right now.
Thank you, Jan. That's beautiful. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Deja. Thank you for watching, everyone. We love you. We appreciate you. And we'll be back again next week. Same channel, talking about all manner of good stuff. See you soon.
Adios.
Bye.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.